Alright, my name is Patrick Cobley, and we're going to talk about advancing to L2 today and mentoring for competitive Magic. One time.
Alright, I'm Patrick Cobley, and we're doing advancing and mentoring towards L2, but also, yeah, it's a bad joke, I gave it, but it's fun, it's a great time. Nevertheless, we're going to be talking about advancing towards L2, whether that not only is, for the people in the other room that aren't L2s, yourself getting there, but also helping others to get there, because this is a mentorship conference, and we do want to help people get and grow. Beep. Alright, before I say anything, first off, isn't that card sexy? Like, that's just, I'm so excited. But I love this card. Monastery Mentor as a card really exemplifies what it is to be a mentor. Because if you notice, something happens, and all of a sudden we have another friend. And then something else happens, and maybe that friend becomes a little bit better, and we have another friend. And that's what the Judge program is all about. It's growing the program in a way where we have more judges that become better and better over time. And the ones that don't, maybe don't stick around. But that's okay. It's not for everybody. But the real question here is, can you be a mentor? Well, this is a mentorship conference, and you all came. So I'm going to assume you're all going to say yes. Is that correct? All right, I got thumbs up. This is beautiful. But we're going towards level 2. So do you have to be a level 2 to mentorship towards level 2? Hey, lots of thumbs down. This is delightful. Are you guys going to say anything, or is there always going to be thumbs? Only thumbs. Okay, cool. Not in fact. In fact, sometimes it's actually better for you to be the same level as a person that's trying to go to the level that maybe you're also going to. Maybe you're both level 1s. You're both struggling with the same issues or slightly different issues. In this case, for example, Mikey, maybe you are having a hard time dealing with approaching tables and at a competitive event, which I know you do not struggle with at all, but whatever. But maybe Greg is dealing with something else. Maybe he has problems figuring out how to do a deck tech better. But you guys are both good at the opposite person's thing. Magically, now you guys become the perfect judge. If only you could Voltron. You can try. Voltron. Stop Tron ones. Ooh, nice. Yes, they did that better. Yeah. Nevertheless. So what does it take to mentor? Does anyone have anything that pops in their head? Steven.
Woo! That was in my head. In order to be a mentor, you have to, one, get the other person's permission to teach them things, and two, you have to be able to teach them.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? Dalton.
Willing to do it.
Willing to do it. Well, yeah, willingness is a good thing. Yeah, that's great. It's great. So, the ability and willingness to communicate what you know is one thing, because obviously you can't communicate what you don't know. You may know that you don't know something, but you still know that. So, think about that. Also, the 3 A's of mentorship, which are approachability, availability, and ability to listen, in that order, in particularly. We talk about approachability. So, Jeff talked about having players come up to him in SCGs. I have this all the time. And I think it's because I put out a friendly nature. When things get serious, things get serious. But for the most part, I want the players to have fun. I want to show them that judging is fun. It's a great time. I enjoy it thoroughly. I like caching events, and I've never done it as a competitive player. So, hey, let's judge. That's a funny joke and all, but what not. So it's always good to be around and available as well. So availability. Once we have a player who has maybe become interested in becoming a judge, now it's time to become available so that they can actually reach you when they need to. I will caution you with availability is that does not mean that you're messaging them every week saying, hey, have you taken your practice test yet? Hey, have you taken your practice test yet? Because, again, you want them to have some of their own
Self-motivation.
Thank you, man. Self-motivation. I've had a lot of people approach me and say, I really want to be a judge, and they have really good reasons. And I think they may be a great candidate, and they just never do anything. And I'm just like, I can't mentor 20 people and, dangle a carrot in front of their people all the time. And I don't have to want to either, yeah. But I think the most important out of the 3 A's is the ability to listen. And this is important and through life. As a life lesson too, but being able to say, hey, Steven, you're trying to become level 2. I know you're level 2, right? But you're telling me, I'm hearing that you're struggling with this very portion, but I'm telling you, maybe you should really go study the IPG more, even though it might be a social interaction that you're having struggles with. So being able to listen and actually tweak your mentorship based upon that is very important. Does anyone else have any other A's or other letters they'd like to add? Oh man, so many. Let's start with Jeff.
I don't have another letter. I have something related to availability.
Please.
Which is, it's been said several times, like you have to have your own motivation, right? Make it easy for them to reach out to you, but do make sure that you make them reach out to you. One of the big things when I did the mentorship thing, which was getting, the RC form has like want to be a judge, right? So all those came to me, which for a small niche thing is like way more people than I thought it would be. And I started with these big long emails of like, here's all these resources and here's all these people and all this stuff. Like 3/4 of them never messaged me back. So I just pared it down to, why do you want to be a judge? Where are you located? Here's my email. And I would strongly recommend if people like come up to you at events and stuff like that, just give them your email. You can chat with them a little bit, just give them your email or whatever and say, shoot me an email with your details. That's gonna weed out a huge portion of the people who aren't actually ever gonna do the work right there.
I think Min next.
Okay, so number A is all people about is analysis, which is you need to know what they are trying for and what they're missing. Because a lot of times they will think they're deficient in one quality, but you know them and you know what they're trying for, and you realize they're actually more deficient in something else they may not realize. So you need to be able to analyze the person you're mentoring and figure out where they are and to where they're going.
Make sure somebody notates the analysis. I need to add that to the presentation. Thank you, man. Stephen, I believe you're next.
Actionable feedback, which is
Actionable
piggybacking off of that is, once you've made the analysis, you have to give them actionable feedback. Like, Patrick, I really noticed, like, the last 3 calls you've had are LEC, looking at extra cards, and you just have, like, struggled with it.
Yeah, game lost him. That's right?
Right.
Okay.
Like, you game lost him for his first one of the day. Like, that's not right. Like, you really need to go, you need to looking at extra cards, read it, come up with your questions, and then come find me later. That gives you, like, I have assessed your ability, given you the actionable feedback, and now it's up to your motivation to fix the problem.
Beautiful. Ethan, you still have something?
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of availability also, is to, like, make sure you understand what time frame they want this in. Is, when in terms they are available to talk to you, when you are available to talk to them. And, if you can set up a reasonable time, figure out in what time frame they are looking to do this. If they say, I want to be an L2 by the end of the year, you as a mentor can say, okay, this is what our layout would need to look like in order to make that happen. And, making sure that they also know, if it's somebody coming up to you and saying, I want to be a judge, usually that's kind of that first bar of entry for me is like, that follow through. It's like, if you can do this one thing, because so many people say, I want to be an L2, and you're like, all right, well, write a tournament report, and then 2 years go by and they've never done that, and it's like, well, you have the rules knowledge, but there's no follow through to that. And
Right. I like that. Zach?
I think one of the big things that I learned, and this is actually through Boy Scouts, was like humility is the most important thing as a mentor/leader. Like, you don't know everything, and that's one of the things. Like, I taught adults over like summers for like how to do basic things, and they would tell me I was wrong. And like,
Okay.
I get it. I'm 19. You're 54. You've done this, but like,
This is how you make a square knot, bro.
I'm teaching you this because they're paying me to do it, and so.
Mostly you're a professional, not tired. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. But that's one of the things, like, I know some people who have been mentors in the past, like, tend to struggle with is, like, they don't take criticism well. Like, oh, hey, you were wrong about this, and don't tell them that, so being humble, that's the best thing.
All right. So we need another word that starts with A but means humility. Good luck.
Humility.
Not arrogant.
Arrogant and less. Anyway, moving on. This is a big one for me. Honesty with diplomacy. We talked about earlier saying, hey, I really don't think you're taking this call well, etc. We want to tell people when they are deficient in something, but we don't want to say it in a way that doesn't make them want to just stop, or that doesn't hurt their feelings and whatnot. And sometimes that's hard, because sometimes people are really deficient. And telling someone, bro, I don't know if you can be a judge or not unless you do these things is hard. But that's one part of the program, and part of us being mentors and leaders is finding a way to do it delicately enough that they look at it as a challenge and not something that just turns them off. Walk the walk. What's that like? Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, just with the honesty diplomacy thing is like, that's something I would practice. If you have other judge comrades that like you can chat with and you have difficult feedback, run it with someone else, because it is really, really hard to find the balance of being gentle enough that they don't want to quit, but also, depending on how bad the thing they screwed up was, impressing on them that it is severe enough. Because it's easy to go too far to the gentle way and be like, it's alright, it's not a big deal, we just need to work on it, and not really impressing, like, but you seriously, you cannot do this again, ever.
Thank you for that. Walk the walk. So Greg had this great example of a person that wants to be an L1, but every time he loses, he gets insanely salty and continues to be salty for like the rest of the night. I also struggle with this because sometimes I'm like, Dick, it's been 7 turns. Where's my second land? And I tend to notice, and I apologize. And usually my opponents are pretty cool about it because it is what it is. But besides that, like we really want to impress upon people that we are a force for good. We want them to have faith in us, and having someone that you're mentoring look at you and go, "Well, you said do this, but you're not doing it." So it's not just talking the talk. You definitely have to walk the walk so that people will actually follow along, and they will see how important it is that when you walk up to a table, that it's important to say, "How can I help?" And maybe not using specific pronouns so we make everyone feel inclusive. These are things that, like, when I started the judge program, I had no clue about it. And it wasn't until I started seeing people do it, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I revere that person because they're a great judge. And they may not be a judge; they could just be a player talking. And I'm just like, I like what they're saying. So we need, especially since we're going on our way to mentor somebody, we need to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward. And this is just life again, right? The great thing about mentorship is it is not just a judge thing. I use it at work. I use it in just daily life when I meet random people. Like it's something that is going to make you a better human being.
One thing about
No.
okay.
What is it?
One thing also about walking the walk and being a mentor is being able to accept mentorship from other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes that comes in the form of criticism, and sometimes it's okay just to go, okay. And you think in your head, I do not agree with that, but let me think on it. Just don't say anything. So then I'm posing a question to you all. Think of something that you can do today that can help you become a better mentor. What can you do to mentor somebody? That's something you can ask every day. It doesn't have to be during judging or anything like that. Just again, life. So now that we've gotten past the what's a mentor, can you be a mentor? Which the answer is yes to all of you. We want to talk about mentorship when it comes to competitive REL, or rules enforcement level, in case someone doesn't know. This is kind of a two-way street here. Not two-way. It's a two-pointed path here. We're going to be talking about stuff that you need to become an L2, because you also need to know the stuff so that you can help other people become L2. It's kind of important. And because we do have some L1s in the class here, I want to make sure that we covered all the bases. Now, this is not a comprehensive list of things. It's more of a generalized list. So if I'm missing something, great, it's fine. I'm probably going to miss something. Nevertheless, though, we're going to go over a few things. Advanced rules knowledge. Yes, you need some rules knowledge to become an L1. We need even more to become an L2, and guess what? Even more to become an L3. It's funny how that works. It's almost like it's a tiered system. Next, we need to look at the L1 to L2 mindset. This is very similar to Jeff's conversation about player to L1 mindset, and how there's a big difference there because we were focused on I need to win, I need to play the gotcha game or whatever. But now we are going from L1, which is a regular judge, if you will, someone who does something in a more friendly environment, to an L2, which, if they're in a competitive environment, man, the rules are going to change, and how we handle these things are going to change because now it's competitive. De-escalation and conflict resolution. This is a big one because people get mad. It's a card game. Like I said, I get salty sometimes at F&M when I didn't pay any money to play, and I'm still getting salty because my stupid lands just won't show up. But whatever, it's fine. But it's a card game, and sometimes people don't realize that, and sometimes it is more than a card game because it's like, hey, I lost this round and I just lost $300. Oops. How to be a good leader. This again is something that isn't just a judge thing, but I'm going to speak mostly on it in a judge context. Mentorship opportunities and how you can help others find mentorship opportunities. And preparing for your first tournament. Because, again, like we said a little bit earlier in our last presentation there, sometimes F&M won't be your first tournament. Sometimes a competitive one might be. Happens. Yeah, right?
It was mine.
So we want to make sure you're prepared for all of these things. So let's talk about advanced rules knowledge. When it comes to advanced rules knowledge, this is, again, it's not a comprehensive list. This is some basic things. But these are things you might want to notate. That way, when you are helping someone else go towards L2, you can kind of focus on these particular things as well as a greater list from a resource I will share with you in a momentarily. So we have things like the layers are continuous effects 1 through 6. As in L1, you know layer 7, the Power and Tempest layer. Man, there are some more. Can anyone name them?
Start at 7.
Shh. There's at least 6 more. I mean, that's like the whole. You ever heard of
They
the?
should know layer 1 pretty quickly.
Right.
Copy of Cloud is-
Copy pretty easy. Yeah.
It's like the whole the practical joke where the senior prank where they named the number sheet 1, 2, and 4. There's a third one, right? There is though. Can anyone name the other 6 layers? That's not an L2. Okay, fine, Ethan. Go ahead.
All right. Copy, type changing, color changing.
You do them in order, please.
In order. Okay.
Actually, I should be more
Off the top
specific.
of
My
head.
fault.
It's been a while since.
Hey, you raised your hand, man.
I know I did.
Oh, you want to give it a shot?
Sure.
Control, copy, effects.
Other way.
Oh,
Copy then control, but yes.
copy and control.
I'm giving my presentation after this.
How about Jeff? Give it a shot.
Copy control, text, type, color, abilities.
And then targets. Yeah. Beautiful. Cool.
CCTT.
So, obviously, because these are continuous effects and they apply in a specific order, it is very important to know that order. So, hey, friends, maybe you should mentor each other to look back at those things. Double check.
Actionable feedback.
Actionable feedback. Did somebody write that one down too? That's number 5.
I texted you. Don't worry about
You
it.
texted me? Oh, nice. What a guy. So characteristic defining abilities, things like Tarmogoyf, anything with a star, anything that's changing consistently, whether it's the graveyard and exile, all this goofy stuff, right? Beautiful things. Linked abilities. Dave, do you know where I got some of these this list from?
Where?
I don't know. We'll find out later. Replacement effects. And more. Hey. So a lot of these things, like I put knowledge pool up here specifically because I really like the resource knowledge pool. It's actually the second one. I don't know what I'm talking yet, but it's actually a place on the blogs, and it's we can put this in like I'll send a note out to the group.
I've got the presentation here.
Okay, cool. Oh, you can share it. Sweet. Yeah, so it's basically blogs.magicjudges.org/knowledge pool. But basically, if you don't want to take a practice test, but you want to test your IPG knowledge and such, they have these different scenarios where you can go in, like they may be bronze or silver and gold, and that's telling you how hard they are. And then you basically go through, and it gives you a scenario. I don't believe they actually give you an answer, though, do they? I don't remember. In the forums, they do? Okay. Oh, yeah. So you do your best, and you can talk with your friends, and you can mentor each other and discuss it together and try and find out what the best answer is to the solution, and then find the answer in the forums. Also, this one right there, oh, it doesn't show up on the screen, that makes sense, is blogs.magicjudges.org/FTW. Dave, what's that site?
Yes. So this would be Judging for the Win, which is a blog that I run, and it's got a whole bunch of articles and video about basically how to rules, policy, best practices, and magic philosophy. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out because it's really great. In my opinion.
Yeah, I've been at L2 for a few years now, and I still go back every once in a while. I'll just do like some L2 prep and L1 prep sometimes because the questions are different. Every once in a while, I'll look at L3 and be sad, but it's okay.
That's like the super.
Yeah, but it's okay. We'll get there eventually, right? Maybe. But it's always good to kind of refresh yourself, and just because you are a level doesn't mean you can't improve yourself. You may forget some stupid things, like I forgot about linked abilities recently, and I was like, I need to go back and look at that, and that's when I found this list. I was like, neato. Delightful. So it's always good to refresh each other and challenge each other. So that's where the knowledge pool comes in. Maybe you're looking through and you find a sweet knowledge pool question, and you go, hey Stephen, what do you think of this question? Huh?
I think this question's garbage.
Fine, won't give you any more. There's also like it's a silly thing, but have you guys seen the possibility storm as well?
Yeah.
Where you're like, wait, killing your opponent this turn, and like that's more of a player thing, but it actually does have some weird interactions sometimes that are pretty cool. That maybe you wouldn't have thought about. One example of a cool interaction that I've never seen before in my life. I was in round 4 of FNM last night, playing ad nauseum. I'm going off, lightning storming against Titan Shift. I'm like, I can't lose. This is great. I'm already killing him. He can't stop me. So I'm at negative bajillion life total, whatever. I have Phyrexian life out, which is important, because that was my don't kill myself this turn. And he cracks 2 Steves in response to my lightning storm. Getting, because he has 2 Valcuts out, and did 12 poison to me with 2 mountains.
Right.
I thought that was hilariously great, and I was not very happy. But I was like, you know what? I've never seen that before, and that's my first loss ever to Titan Ship. So, neato. 14 and 1. Gosh.
And one.
Matches, not games. Still. Also, another good resource is your mentor. Whether that's someone who's a higher level than you, which something I learned really early on in the judge program is that levels matter, but they don't matter. They matter in that obviously, if I look at an L3, I understand they probably understand more advanced rules stuff than I do. But when we're both on the floor and we're both floor judges in an event, we are the same thing. Now, I may still go to them to reassure myself and whatnot, but I've seen L3s make silly, dumb mistakes. One example in particular, at a Legacy GP that I was at, someone cracked a Ghost Quarter and his opponent was playing Miracles, and his opponent said, hey, do I have to shuffle if I don't search? I looked it up, read the card, and said, yes. His opponent said, you should appeal. And I was like, well, that's cool, your opponent. So I went and got Scott Marshall, who was a level 5 just a few months earlier. And he said, hey, literally like 6 months ago, I got the exact same question wrong at a GP on camera. I'm like, that's neat. I felt better immediately. I didn't feel good that I got the question wrong, but it got handled correctly before anything happened because they got appealed. Fine. That's okay. So having a mentor and finding your mentor and bouncing things off them is a great resource. And just other judges in general. You may be really tight with a few people, other judges, and then in maybe on our Facebook group, you don't know somebody. Like Mikey, when you joined our Facebook group, did you know anybody besides like maybe Dalton, maybe Dave? You?
No one else.
Yeah, okay, yeah, man. It's people that play in the store, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, fortunately, I think you know a lot more now, which is great.
Yes.
Sweet. But all these judges are judges, and they've made it this far for a reason. So it's always good to have them. I picked this very specific picture for a reason. Oh, you have a question?
Something before that.
I was just going to say another resource for knowledge, shameless plug, is Rules Day Tuesday on Facebook.
Yes, and Rules Day Tuesday. And, yes, so that's one, yes. I'm so sorry, I forgot about that one. But yes, if you're not part of the Rules Day
Tuesday.
That one, thanks, guys. That was really cool because they break down so much stuff. And
It's
then,
interactive.
I was going to say, interactive discussions, at least once a week. Following the sets, we'll go through new set mechanics, we'll go through pretty much in order, tournament stuff, all the way through the IPG, all the way through the MTR, all the way through stuff that's like, here's some speeches that you should know how to give as a judge, like, here's how to write reviews, here's how to write tournament reports, like, pretty much every aspect of becoming a judge, not even just rules, but like really useful discussions and back and forth, and it's a good group to be in.
thank you, Ethan. And then your stream as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Be sure to subscribe to twitch.tv/judgingftw and youtube.com/judgingfeasworthless.
And it's our own Dave and Dalton doing that show, and it's delightful. They break all down a whole bunch of good stuff. So, the L1 to L2 mindset. Again, this is not just necessarily a judging thing, because even L1, sometimes as an L1, I know when I was an L1, like I was a judge, but I was still like kind of a player, right? And so going back to your presentation, that's sometimes a hard bridge to cross. Well, sometimes our hard bridge to cross is, hey, I'm an L1 judge, I do F&M all the time, and now I'm doing a competitive event. Things are different. And I actually personally struggled with, I'm a competitive judge now, I came back to F&M after like 6 months and went, man, that's a hidden card here, reveal you, whoa, wait a second. Let me make sure that's right. That feels a little harsh. Oh, this is game, no, it's not probably. So let's talk about a few things about this. There's a difference between competitive and regular. There's a big difference. There's a lot of times where we're not going to give a penalty unless we have a reason to, like we want to give them a game loss because they keep ignoring us, or sometimes I'll do it just because I tend to notice the same penalty happening over and over and over again with a player. I'm like, I just want to track it at this point. And if someone has 5 LECs during Friday Night Magic and that I just maybe didn't notice because maybe there's multiple judges, now I'm getting kind of worried because it seems like there might be some exploitation. So obviously in regular, we're more about teaching, right? We want to make sure that people are learning the game. Newer players specifically are not being penalized because of something they didn't know. Sometimes they do things they didn't know was wrong, and we still have to penalize them. Like, oh, I kept the foil out of this draft, and then drew after another card. Yeah, that's theft, bro. Like, you can't do that. Like, I can't do that. So we can't sometimes turn a blind eye, if you will. Speaking of which, what's forgivable? Does anyone have any examples that are something that is forgivable at regular and at competitive?
Oh, no.
Not one and the same. Just regular's fine.
At regular, for instance, last night we had a younger girl that's playing, 10 or 9, and like most of us when we're playing Magic, we're gonna play a 60 card deck when we're like that's the minimum. Of course, at 9 years old, you're like, I just want to keep putting cool stuff in my deck. So she's playing like a 93 card deck, but she only had 60 sleeves, so she's played half of her deck on
That's a good example. I like that example.
So rather than say, hey, we need to take care of this, I set her aside. I said, I'll let you just play the game because everybody knows this girl's not cheating. She just wants to play Magic,
Man,
so
you guys are grooms. She got you.
we took her off to the side. I bought her a set of 100 sleeves, just the cheap ones. It's like, let's re-sleeve your deck before one of your opponents has an issue with it.
That was nice for you.
So yeah, that was one thing that we're like, I'm not gonna give her a, marked card error when it's not even necessary at this point. Because they were clear sleeves, and most people didn't even notice it. But I wanted to make sure her deck was legal in case there was some big guy that says, "Oh, these are marked cards; they're not having all sleeves." So that was.
Before I became a judge, I played with a 50-card deck from Cards from Scourge with blue and black sleeves, alternating.
Oh.
On lands.
You're
and
like,
not
this
lands.
looks cool.
It was sweet because it looked great, except all the lands were in blue, and some of the cards were also in blue, and then the rest of the cards. Yeah, it was bad. Anyway, did you have something, Dave? Okay. What about something that's competitive? Can someone give me something that's competitive that's forgivable? Zach, you were the most confident one.
Marked cards you call on yourself.
Ooh, boy, that's a fun one. Okay. Steven?
So I call it forgivable with a little asterisk because it does come with a penalty associated with it. But like simple mistakes like someone knocks a card out the top of their library, or like a dexterity error, or I plus my Liliana the Veil to target you to discard a card, but you're like, I have this ley line of sanctity, you can't do that. It's like there's a penalty tied to it, but it's still like not a your day is over
Gotcha.
issue.
Sure, yeah.
Missing a beneficial trigger.
Missing a beneficial trigger.
What's a
Okay.
beneficial trigger?
Those don't exist.
I also put players can figure things out for themselves.
Missing a trigger that is
A
not
non-
usually detrimental.
There you go.
Fine.
I also like when you come up to a table and there's something that's serious but not serious. It's like they just fix it. You're like, cool. Have a good day. We're not getting any judge involved. We don't have to, unless there's literally a penalty we have to assess. Right. Jeff, did you have something else, by the way?
No, it's gonna be missing a trigger.
Missing trigger. Cool. Beautiful.
My simple one is, please put your cell phone away.
For the love of
Don't use the dice. to
Don't use dice,
subtract your
cell
life
phones.
total.
Please take those headphones off.
That's such a big, especially when they have it plugged into the phone in their pocket. I'm like,
Please take those headphones off.
you know what? You can get the headphones on, just unplug them. I don't care.
They haven't plugged into an iPod.
It has Wi-Fi. Question mark? I don't know. Which-
The old ones, the little
Oh, the
shuffles.
shuffle? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. It's just my music. And it's literally just a playlist of, hey, if you're in this match, do this thing. If you're in this match, do this thing. And if you went that far, that's
Big
good, right?
You deserve it. You're fine.
Adapting. So we talked a little bit about how like I would come back to F&M and maybe struggle a little bit because I was being a little too harsh. Sometimes you'll be at an event, if you have not done a bigger event before, where you may be judging right here, and this is the open, this is draft. And if you have turned around a few times, suddenly you're like, which one's which? And so it's always a good idea when,
What event are we in?
yeah, first off, thank you, I appreciate you guys. What are you playing? You're two-headed giant? Okay, there's no competitive two-headed giant today. We're solid. Also, two-headed giant, what kind of question do you have? Go ahead. You know, those are good times. So Dave did this thing in our judge group. We used to get together like every Monday, or it was every other Monday, where he had this box of judge calls and situations, and he would flip over some things and go, okay, this is a pro tour event, and you're a famous player, and you're gonna curse somebody out. Okay, cool. And then someone would come in from the judge call and take the call, and they had no clue what event they were in, and we had to figure all this out by taking the call. So this is something that allows you to adapt to every situation you roll with, which is nice to work with. So that's something you guys can work together with. So like if Mikey and I want to mentor each other, I can be like, hey, yo, Mikey, I heard school call. What about this situation? And our immediate response is, well, you would do this and this and this, and we haven't even talked about it. It's regular though. And I love conversation with judges because usually it's answer questions. Stop. Wait. This is competitive. It's like, got him. And then again, are you being too harsh? Which was a struggle for me, coming back from competitive to F&M, finding that point where sometimes it's okay to let it go. And sometimes we want to teach this person, and I'd rather teach them than penalize them so harshly that they don't want to come back. Or maybe they go to a different store, and they look at me as a person who's, well, that's just a rules lawyer. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't have to deal with that person. Zach, do you have something?
No.
Okay, your hand was like almost there? Okay, all right, beautiful. All right, de-escalation and conflict resolution. I'm going to go quicker because, oh wait, we started late, didn't we? Ah, we're good. De-escalation and conflict resolution. Thank you. This is important. Soon it's going to be a requirement for L1. Actually, I believe it's in, 2 weeks? Not even 2 weeks, 10 days?
10 days.
So, neato. We can all learn about it. But let's talk about it a little today, too. Because an upset player is not a good player. Like, not that they're not good, it's not a fun situation to be a part of. My very first experience with this was at a judge conference. I had a player, this was an awkward situation conference, and I love the story. To preface it, the movie Judge Pool, wow. Deadpool had just come out. And player sitting at the table, across the table is maybe a way where the third person who's supposed to play this player maybe can't fit at the table in some way, shape, or form. Or there's something, maybe the chair's broken, etc. And the only other chair's across the room. So the whole goal was, we want to get these people to move over here. And we want to get that happen so they can start playing. And the person fought back tremendously because, oh, I sat here first so I could see the clock. I don't want all sorts of goodies. Well, I offered this person a crisp high five to move. And does anyone know Jeremy Toma Cooper?
Yeah.
Cool. He doesn't have a pinky in one of his hands. I didn't know this. He said, is that some kind of joke? And I was like, how do you deal with that? Granted, this is all set up, right? So like that wasn't set up. Like that was me, and I just turned white apparently, like Casper. But things like this will happen, and you have to be very careful how you handle a player in upset situations. So I have some pro tips on handling upset players. One of them is knowing when to be nice versus stern. A lot of people will angle shoot. They will get upset, so they can say, well, you're not being fair because X reason. Sometimes X reason makes sense. And you go, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe I should. When I used to run PPTQs by myself, I was the head judge. I always told all people in the beginning of the match, my rulings are final, although if you would like to appeal me, I will double check. Again. Because I always double check my calls. But it's gonna be me again. So I will reread the rules, and every once in a while, let me check. Yeah, we're good. Okay, good. Every once in a while, I'd find something that I missed. You know, I missed a word, like not. Kinda important. And I'd be like, you know what? You are actually right in this switch mission because of this reason. I am so sorry. Apologizing is great. Sometimes things aren't your fault, but apologizing still fixes the problem. Because it's like, well, SCG didn't do this thing for me. Well, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that this thing happened to you. What can I do to make it better? But again, sometimes you need to put the hammer down, right? And then it's hammer time. Taking the high ground is really important. Because we're going to keep judging. That's just going to happen. But we also want people to have a view of judges that they can trust. And so taking the high ground and resolving the situation in the most diplomatic way possible, I guess is a good way of saying it, is always the best way to do it. You should never be walking away from a situation going, that guy's a jerk. And I'm talking about the judge, talking about the player. Like, you can think he's a jerk. Don't say that. Enough examples. We'll just keep moving on. We got time. I actually did use the word customer service for this exact purpose because I actually believe that every player is a customer, and I used to actually talk to players, and when I talked to other judges, I would say, well, this is a customer. And I started saying players more because it's judge lingo, I guess, and it's correct. But in my mind, every person is a customer because they paid to be in an event, or they didn't pay, but they're giving up their time and their energy to play in this event. And we want to make sure that the experience is good. In some situations, bad things happen, and we want to make sure that their experience still stays good even after the bad thing. So I always like to keep the, like, what can I do to make sure that they come back? Especially when you're working for someone who is literally making money off this person showing up, you want to make sure they continue to show up. Especially in regular REL, just because at regular, that's where you obviously make some money. Listen, we talked about listening earlier. It's a big deal, and I don't mean passively listen where you go, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to say this exact thing that just contradicts everything you just said. Like, we were in combat. Oh, so you were in your main phase. It's like, no, we were in combat. Listening is very important. If any of you are married, you understand listening is very important. If any of you have been married and are no longer married, you probably learned the listening was important. This is something that I got from work. A lot of leaderships, when they talk about listening in particular, tell you not to say, so you said, but more, it looks like, or it sounds like. And that's reaffirming what the person has said. Because it is way more personal and it makes it feel like you believe, even though you may not. Ethan.
My favorite phrase to use in de-escalation is, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So this is the situation as I understand it. Let me finish, and then you can correct me if I've missed anything or messed up anything. And that usually, like, when somebody comes to you upset about a situation, like you said, to listen, but importantly, be able to regurgitate exactly what they said back to you, because the number one thing people are upset about is they feel like they're not being heard.
Right.
So, like, if you say, all right, I've heard what you said, and this is the situation as I understand it, that's going to go a long way in having them go from a 10 to a 5 in how upset they are, is just knowing that you understand the situation they're going through.
GTND, I actually called a judge and they were taking notes over what I was saying. Is that a good or bad practice?
So you had, wait, what?
So we had a call.
You were the player.
I was a player, yeah.
Oh.
And they were taking notes of what I was saying as I was explaining the situation.
I think it depends. I think if I was in that situation and I wanted to take notes, I'd be like, hey, I'm just going to clarify, I'm going to take notes just so we get all the information correct. And that way it doesn't seem like I'm going to get you later with what you're saying. Like, it's saying, I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, and because this sounds like a complicated situation.
It was a very complicated
Okay.
situation. So.
Yeah. Beautiful.
One thing that's really important in de-escalation, and I work at a call center with people's medical information, is empathizing with people. And you don't have to actually care that they're frustrated. You just have to make them believe that you care. And like, I've had players come out to me, they're super frustrated, super hostile, and like the player came up to me like, hey, my opponent's doing this, and I'm like, I understand you're frustrated. Let's break this down. I'll come out like, how can I help you? And acknowledging that frustration and giving them like the coming to meet them halfway at their frustration will save you many conversations and many feel bad moments, because you've brought this player from I'm alone, I'm frustrated to okay, this person is working with me to find a solution.
Got it. That's very nice.
Just to touch off of that too, is it's important to use phrases like, I understand this is frustrating. I understand you're upset about the situation, not I'm sorry that you're frustrated. I'm sorry that you don't
It's not your fault.
apologize.
No.
I was gonna say, it is not your fault this happened, and if you have to give a ruling, it is not your fault that you are giving the ruling. It is you are enforcing the rules as they exist, and so I understand that this is upsetting. I understand that you are frustrated. I understand that this is not how you expected the day to go. Any of those are great, but it's, don't say unfortunately or I'm sorry, because those a player who's already mad is gonna snap on that word and be like, "You're sorry, you're doing this to me," because in their mind that's all that's happening.
You should just delete the word unfortunately from your vocabulary.
Unless you did something that caused that, and then you need to admit culpability, then you
There we
need
go.
to say
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
But
We have about 5 minutes, so I'm going to push through these last couple slides real quick to make sure we get there. How to be a good leader. This one's really important, so I'm a little upset we took so long, but we'll get there. So this is mostly about your first team lead, but not just about your team lead, because you can be a leader and not be a team lead. That makes sense. But the first time you get assigned, like if you say SCG believes in you and they say, hey, we want to give you a team lead opportunity. See how you do. Definitely be prepared. My first team lead, I was like, I got this. I've worked this team 5 times. It'll be all right. Within 5 minutes of the team starting, I realized that it was not going to be all right. It ended up being okay because my team was amazing. But they were like, oh, what do you want to do about this? I'm like, I haven't thought of that. Holy crap. The same goes for getting your first head judge. Whether that be, a pre-release or a red shirt, an open at some point, maybe. I think I'd be way more worried about an open. That's my head. But I struggled a lot with head judges now. My first head judge last year in Indianapolis is a classic head judge, and I spent so much time worrying about the announcements. And I hear this happens a lot. They're like, I'm gonna be in front of people. There's gonna be 1,000 people, and they're gonna be talking. That in my first round, I blew a call. I was so relieved that my announcements were fine. I was like, this is great. Oh, your god from Amonkhet, it died last turn. Yeah, you missed your trigger. It's cool. Things have changed, but then that was wrong. Bad. So preparing ahead of time, and you can again while mentoring with each other, say, hey, I know you've done head judge for this. I know you've done a team lead for this team. Do you have any advice? Use people around you. They're like the judge community as a whole is really helpful. It's almost like nice people are nice. It's strange. When you are doing a leadership position, get to know your team. Whether that be on Facebook ahead of time or during the event, I don't know, before, during, and after, it's great. Maybe going to a party afterwards because you can. I mean, you can't. Staff party, whatever. It's always good to know more about them, because that way the next time you work with them, you have that better connection and more trust. This one's really hard for a lot of people when you're being a leader, is not to micromanage. My very first team lead was a side event team lead, and I think I cut on that first day almost all of the slips for all the events, because I thought in my head, well, they're out judging, I want to make sure they continue to judge. Let me cut all the slips for all their events. And it was pointed out to me, well, that's cool and all, but what if they have a problem? Who are they going to go to? And so it feels weird sometimes being a team lead, because sometimes it feels like you're not doing anything, but you're doing something. You're being available. You're ready to fix fires, put them out right when they happen, instead of waiting for that fire to catch on fire and, oh boy, like getting a call 17 minutes into the call and then having to disqualify the player in the next round. That's real awkward. Nevertheless, trust but verify. If you have someone on your team you don't know, give them the benefit of the doubt. If they make a mistake, fix it. Move along. Things are happening. At that point, you can give them actionable feedback, and they can then work on those things. But I've seen new team leads all the time, just leadership positions in general, where they go, cool, this is how we're going to do it. Also, I don't know you, so do this thing, do this like menial task. And it's like, come on. And we all got to this point in this program for a reason. I like to check in on the team on the day. I specifically like to hydrate them because people forget like so easily about water. What's up?
Oh, no, agree.
No, you're green with the water, yes. Do not force it upon them at all. I specifically had one team lead where I basically told someone, no, just take this water. And they literally told me, I get sick if I drink water. I'm like, excuse me? Okay, neat. But don't force it upon people. Just offer, suggest. Yeah. Anyway. Feedback. We talked about feedback earlier. Whether this be verbal, I'm really bad at writing reviews. Like, I'm real bad. So, if I do tell people that I'm going to give a review, I give myself a deadline. Because if I have a deadline, in my head, I have to get it done by that date. If I just say, hell, do it like next week sometime, that's not a deadline. We need to be specific with our deadlines. Say, hey, I will have one by Friday for you. And if I don't, ping me and say, you're a failure. I don't want to be a failure. Cool. Opportunities. We're going to fly by this one pretty quick. Just remember the 3A, 5As at this point. And the other ones that are in the list there. A lot of players will approach you, especially if you're approachable. Funny how it works. And I like a lot what Jeff and Min were saying earlier about how here's the thing you can do this thing. You want to be a judge, do this one thing. Just give it to me. Send me an email.
Sign up for judges.
Sign up for judges. Just do something. If they don't do that, it's like they really want to be a judge. I like to pass leads when I get them to my proteges, or my judgelings, if you will, because sometimes I'll get a lot and I want to be like, hey, why don't you give it a shot? See how you do. And I'm sitting there watching from afar. How's that person doing? Doing good. I like the fact that I have at least one judgeling that has another judgeling below. That's neat. Good job, Dalton. So that's Judge Grandpa, I think, right? Is that how it works? Yeah. I don't know. All right, this is the last slide. Preparing for your first tournament. This is important in helping somebody else prepare for their first tournament. And it matters a lot depending on what the tournament is. If we're preparing for FNN, because that's the first thing they're ever doing, okay, our preparation's gonna be a lot different. We're probably not gonna look at the IPG because it doesn't matter. You can glance at it if you want, but realistically, we're gonna be looking at a few different things. For competitive specifically, we are going to study IPG and the MTR and recent FAQs because things change sometimes that aren't notified and things happen, and it's scary. Dave every once in a while does these things called Set Digest where he goes through like all these cool interactions with cards. It's amazing. It's on the Judging for the Win blog. You should check it out sometime. And Rules Day Tuesday, you know that's why you're there. You're a heckler, but you're not a heckler.
I could be doing.
I mean, we're almost done.
Okay.
It's late. Deck checks. If you've never done a deck check before, or you are curious about maybe becoming better, like if it takes you 10+ minutes to do a single deck check, you probably need to do that. Just being honest, you know what I mean? Being honest there, because some people will do all sorts of crazy things. I see people will sort them in different piles, etc. Do whatever makes sense for you, but understand certain ways of doing it will make it harder for other people to help you if they can help you. So, like a lot of people will sort lands to a side and leave them because lands are super easy to do unless it's amulet tiny. Otherwise, that's probably the one you should start with, but it's whatever. But those are things that we need to learn, we can do better. And if you have questions about deck checks, there's a plethora of people in the room that I guarantee have done at least one and are pretty good at them. And when you get a first chance to work an event like you worked Dave's MCQ, I guarantee he made you do a deck check.
Yep.
Oh man! Oh man!
Wait, what does that mean?
Ironically, my first deck check was also a Dave. It
I
was
believe
great.
my
I
first
don't think
deck
it went
check
bad
was
at all.
also Dave.
Dave? Cheating on all of us. Come on. Recent main rules updates. Specifically when a card gets banned or unbanned, it's a good idea at the beginning of the event to make sure that people know that it's legal or not legal, and pay attention to yourself. This is probably the biggest point in this entire presentation, in my opinion, about mentorship, is that when you make a judge or you're helping someone become a certain level and they're finally getting to their first event, that first impression literally is everything. It's said all the time, but if you walk into an SUG, they don't have no clue who you are, but Dave said you're a pretty cool guy, and you just blow everything up out of the world, and you're super antisocial, and you don't get to know anybody on stage, maybe you'll get a second chance. I mean, maybe you recover throughout the day. Now that sounds like it might be really nerve-wracking, but at the same time, you got to do it. Like, it's something we have to follow along with. And I know I'm like 1 minute away. I'm sorry. I like to introduce myself to TO and everyone working on stage, especially at SCG. If they hire somebody new that I don't know, I introduce myself to them at least 2 or 3 times in a day. My wife started working SCG on some events, not actually for SCG, but as an independent contractor, just like we are, for stage staff. And I was talking to her about this point, and she just calls everybody friend because she's like, I don't know these people's names because they show up once, they say their name, and then they just assume that she knows who they are. So I like to go up and make myself known every time. My very first event, I was told by someone who gave me a review that they thought I was an L2 because of my work ethic and because I was talking to them like they're stage staff. Who cares? So I was a level 1. Fun fact. But it's pretty cool. Communicate with stage staff. Also get to know our judges. You're going to work with judges from all over the world. We consistently in our region have people from Brazil, from Canada, Europe sometimes. It's good to know them because you're going to make connections. And if you happen to make a connection with somebody and then maybe get to work a GP in one of those countries, now you know somebody already and they can vouch for you. So this means that you're going to be better positioned. I guess is a better way of saying it. Not too many points on that. Don't get bent up about mistakes. They happen. L3 judges, like I said, Scott Marshall was an L5. He made a mistake. He didn't kill his day. Just let it go. Did you have a quick point?
I was just saying, it's not about making a mistake, it's about how you handle the mistake after you know you've made it.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're just learning opportunities. Sometimes things happen, and like I've made a call, came over, talked to it about it with a judge after the call, saying this is a weird situation. Check out what I did, and they're like, that's real wrong. And then I'm bolting across the room trying to stop them before they start playing again. It was a turn later. We got it. It worked out, sort of. But they were cool, fortunately. But that could blow up, and then all of a sudden we're in de-escalation. And notes. I like some people taking notes. This is delightful. Take notes throughout the day, especially at your first event, because that's going to make it so that you're more prepared in the future to take more notes. You'll notice head judges in announcement meetings will say, hey, we had this really cool call where this thing and this thing and this thing happened. They didn't just remember that. And I've noticed that pretty much every person that is head judge in open takes a bajillion notes. And I'm ashamed to say I don't take it that many. But I'm so more worried about taking the call and getting the call right. And then that very next moment, I should be like, okay, I need to notate this too. And then another judge call happens. And then, but these are all good things to do to make sure that your first event goes smoothly. And I know this is more kind of a L2 basis thing instead of super mentorship, but all these points still apply. Give feedback and reviews. Again, whether they're vocal or on Facebook or actually in the review module, please do. People appreciate it. It is so nice when you think you did a really bad job at an event for someone to say, hey, you did a great job in this specific call. Keep it up. And especially if it was a call you blew. Does anyone have any questions and answers for like a minute? Yeah.
I have a couple things I just didn't know where they fit in.
Okay.
For L1s working to L2, I would strongly recommend you find someone else working to L2 that's an L1 to track with each other, both for accountability, but also because it's very easy to fall into, if you're working a lot with just L2s who are helping mentor you to there, to keep moving the goalposts on yourself and to think like, oh, well, I need to know everything they do because they're an L2, that's where I have to be. But like, frequently, the L2s doing that are more veteran, or like everyone's a little stronger in certain areas. I spent a huge amount of time as an L1 because the only judges I interacted with were Pat and Dave and Marcos, who are all very good L2s who had been L2 for a long time. And I was like, well, I can't take the L2 test until I'm Dave, because Dave's an L2, right? Which is not a realistic bar. The line for L2 is below that. And that can help keep you more grounded on like, this is real progress I'm making, as opposed to like, the goal is off here and I can't really see where it is.
And there was a point I was actually going to make that I didn't in my presentation, that there's a very common theme in the judge program is that insert judge level here, and you are this judge level way long before you were this judge level. So you're an L2 way before you're an L2. Because a lot of times someone doesn't just sneak into the L2. Like they are living the life, they are doing the judging, and then they become L2.
Clint Heron was mentoring me a lot for my path to L2, and the sentence that he said the most that I didn't hear from him until the day of the test, after I'd taken the test and was like waiting for the results, he said, "Steven, it's a matter of when, not if." I wish I'd known that beforehand, because I would have felt a lot better going into that test. But
Oh well.
that is the one sentence that has stuck with me the most, is as you are improving and being mentored and mentoring other people, it's very important to remind them that it's not a matter of if you're going to make L2 or if you're going to make L1, it's a matter of when are you going to hit that goal.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'll go fast.
Quickly, yes.
Event integrity is more important than mentorship. If you're a 2 working with a 1, or you're a 1 working with a 0, and you're letting them do something and they're screwing it up, and it's going to have a bad impact on the players, stop them. I have worked an event where like I had a 2 watching me as a 1, and I was wildly screwing up a draft, and they just let me do it. Because they're like, well, you're going to learn. I'm letting you fly solos. No, don't do that. Like, if it's going to impact the players, stop it. You want to let people, learn as much solo as they can, because that tends to be more helpful for them, but also that can't come at the expense of the event.
Because being a strong second, which I've done for many people, actually some people here, where they're their first team leads and you have to be right under them and making sure they're doing everything right, you have to give them that room, definitely. But at some point, be like, you have to subtly prod, have you thought about this yet? And be like, make sure they always oh yeah, that thing.
That has nothing to do with my presentation, Link Punch. It does though. Anyway.
Last one was actually kind of what Min was getting at there, which is when you're mentoring at an event, you need to know your specific role in the event. If you're the head judge mentoring down, that often means giving them things to do and then trusting them to go do it. If you're, like Min said, if you're the strong second, it means actually letting your team lead the team. Don't de facto take over for them. Don't say oh, we should probably do it this way. Keep your mouth shut unless they ask you a question or are about to burn the event down, and then give your feedback after.
Beautiful. Any other questions? Cool. I think it's the part where you clap. Woo! Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Patrick. Awesome. So the current time is